I'm Amira Blake, and I want you to listen carefully because what I'm about to explain is not about rumors, revaluations, or overnight miracles. It's about power, access, and who controls the gates when a frontier market finally opens. And it's about why some of the most powerful financial institutions in the world publicly tell you not to look at Iraq, while quietly positioning themselves inside it. 6 months ago, we exposed how global banks quietly embed themselves into Iraq while publicly telling retail investors to stay away. Now we have updates, and they confirm the pattern. Not louder, not faster, but deeper. Let's start with the hard truth. Iraq is not preparing for a currency event. Iraq is preparing for market domination. The Central Bank of Iraq is no longer acting like a currency manager. It is acting like a regulatory architect. Over the past year, Iraq has shifted almost all foreign trade finance away from the central bank itself and into commercial banks through correspondent banking relationships. That sounds boring. It is not, because this is the part they don't explain on television. That single move changes everything, because when correspondent banking becomes mandatory, only large, compliant, capitalized institutions survive. Small banks die. Weak companies stall. Monopolies form. And monopolies are where institutional money lives. This is why the conversation about the dinar is misleading. The dinar is not the prize. Access is the prize. Now let's talk about the Iraqi Stock Exchange, the ISX, and why it's always mentioned quietly, if at all. The ISX has been misunderstood for years because people look at prices instead of structure. The laws governing the ISX already allow foreign ownership. That has been true since CPA Order 74. What was missing was not legality, it was trust. Trust in clearing, trust in settlement, trust in AML, trust in money movement. Those barriers are now being dismantled deliberately. New clearing and settlement regulations, new post-AGM return to trading rules, new share swap regulations, new unlisted company frameworks, new state asset leasing rules for investment. This is not cosmetic reform. This is preparation for scale. And here's the part most people never hear. When scale enters a market like Iraq, competition does not increase. It collapses. Because foreign capital does not spread evenly, it concentrates. This is the real secret play. Let's talk about ISX-listed companies. Banks first. If you are a bank on the ISX and you do not secure correspondent banking relationships, you become irrelevant. If you cannot process international trade finance, letters of credit, or foreign currency flows, you are cut off from growth. That means a small number of banks will absorb volume, deposits, and credibility. That is monopoly behavior, not illegal monopoly, regulatory monopoly, the kind institutions prefer. Now move to telecom. Companies like AsiaCell operate in an environment where infrastructure costs are massive, licensing is limited, and government cooperation matters. When foreign capital enters Iraq, it does not fund 10 telecoms. It backs one or two. The ones with scale, the ones with compliance, the ones already embedded in the system. That turns stable companies into cash flow magnets. Now, consumer staples. Baghdad soft drinks is a perfect example. In a frontier market opening to foreign money, consumer staples with nationwide distribution become defensive monopolies. Foreign funds love predictable demand in unstable regions. Food, telecom, banking, cement, logistics. These are not growth stories. They are control stories. Here is the key point most people miss, and why the public narrative stays focused on the dinar instead of the ISX. When Iraq moves toward IMF Article 8 and full currency convertibility, the dinar does not need to skyrocket. It only needs to become reliable. Because once money moves freely, foreign investors stop caring about the currency headline and start caring about equity ownership. Stocks re-rate before currencies do. Always. That is how every emerging market transition works. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Game monopoly. This is not a metaphor. Iraq is intentionally creating gatekeepers, banks that clear international payments, companies that dominate essential sectors, firms that can pass compliance audits, businesses that can absorb foreign capital without destabilizing prices. That is not corruption. That is strategy. Monopolies reduce risk. Risk reduction attracts capital. Capital inflow raises valuations. This is why you keep seeing the same names show up quietly in government meetings, trade conferences, financing deals, and reform announcements. It's not favoritism, it's selection. Now let me be very clear, because this is where people get emotional. This does not mean every ISX stock will rise. Most will not. Illiquid companies will be ignored. Non-compliant firms will stagnate. Speculative plays will die quietly. But the companies that sit at the center of banking, telecom, consumer distribution, infrastructure, and energy financing, those become systemically important. And systemically important assets do not trade like penny stocks. They trade like anchors. Now, here is the line that will divide the audience and explain why institutions move silently while retail argues loudly. If you are waiting for a currency reset to make you rich, you are late. If you are positioning in assets that become unavoidable when Iraq integrates globally, you are early. This is not about timing a pop. This is about understanding who wins when the door opens, and the door is opening slowly, on purpose, under regulation, not hype. So here's what to watch next. Correspondent banking announcements, capital increases and mergers, post-AGM trading resumptions, foreign conference participation, ISX volume expansion, not price spikes. Because when monopolies lock in place, price discovery follows. Quietly, relentlessly. This is not financial advice. This is a map. And maps are only useful if you know how to read terrain instead of listening to noise. So I'll leave you with this. What if the real opportunity in Iraq was never the dinar? What if it was ownership in the companies that control the flow once the dinar moves freely? And what if the biggest thing they're not telling you is that the ISX was always the end game? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which ISX sector you want broken down next. And if you want a follow-up that names the strongest and weakest positions under this structure, say the word. I'm Amira Blake, and now you understand the game behind the game.